book of Romans is called the book of Romans is why? It's not a trick question, right? It's written to the Roman church, right? It's written to the Roman. So every time you see one of those books, Corinthians is called Corinthians because it's written to the Corinthian church. Galatians, to the churches of Galatia because it's a region. Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, all the same thing. It's all written to a church at a certain locale or a certain geographic region. Verse 7, to all who are in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. He says saints. And this is a common thing with Paul. When he writes to the Corinthians, he calls them saints. When he writes to the church of Galatia or the Ephesians, he calls them saints. Philippians, saints. What is a saint? All right, a Christian. Right? Short term for it is a Christian. If you look in, now when I looked in the Greek lexicon, that word saint is translated from the word hagios. And it's just really a sacred, blameless, consecrated, somebody who had been sanctified, set apart for a special purpose, somebody who has been redeemed, somebody who's set apart for a special purpose. So I don't know if you've ever thought of yourself as a saint, but you are, right? It's not something that somebody has to vote upon. It's not something that the church votes on to whether you're a saint or not. God made us saints. But he says, to those who are called to be saints, grace and peace to you from God our Father and Lord Jesus Christ. And he says, first I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. And that's something to be commended on the Romans, that their faith had been spoken of through the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you in my prayers, making request if by any means now at last I may find a way in the will of God to come to you. For I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gifts. So that's one of the reasons why he wanted to make his way to him, that he may impart some spiritual gifts to him, that you may be established, and that is that I also may be encouraged together with you, that I may be encouraged together with you by the mutual faith of both you and me. So even Paul, when he was an apostle, a servant of Christ, also wanted to receive mutual encouragement. You know, we try to bolster each other up. You know, Paul received a lot of persecution because he was a Christian. When he was out there killing Christians or consenting to the death of Christians, he didn't receive a whole lot of flack for that. In fact, the high priest was giving him letters of recommendation to be able to go into the foreign areas, to be able to do exactly that. Arrest Christians and bring them back to Jerusalem so that they can be tried and persecuted. So when Paul was out there persecuting Christians, or when he was consenting to the death, in Acts chapter 7, he was consenting to the death of Stephen, he wasn't receiving a lot of flack for that. But now that he's become a Christian, he's also the recipient of some of that persecution. And because he's the recipient of that persecution, he's needing mutual encouragement by the mutual faith of both the Romans and what he has as well. We as Christians, we've got to encourage one another and strengthen one another. Life is hard, and sometimes you can feel like you're on an island. But continuing on in Romans chapter 1 and beginning verse 13, it says, Now I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that I often planned to come to you, but was hindered until now, that I might have some fruit among you, just as also among the other Gentiles. And I am debtor both to Greeks and to barbarians, both to wise and unwise. I want to stop right there. What does that mean, that he's debtor both to Greeks and barbarians and to wise and unwise? You notice he's excluded a group, right? He's talking about Greeks and Gentiles.